All right, I guess we're on. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Nirmata Office Hours for Kyverno. Today is our 6th episode. We have 2 topics reserved. One is to develop this Kyverno, like when you want to. All right, I guess we're on. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Nirmata Office Hours. Okay, I guess I have to mute myself on YouTube. So today we have 2 sessions reserved. The first topic, we're gonna have Vishal and Anushka demonstrate how you can develop with Kyverno. And then we have Ved, another contributor of Kyverno, is going to demonstrate how to develop in devcontainer. So with that, let me hand off to Vishal and Anushka. Let me stop share and please take it away.
Awesome. Hi everyone, I'm Anushka Mittal, a software developer with Nirmata and also a contributor to Kyverno. Thanks for joining. This is episode 6 where we discuss development with Kyverno. In episode 5, we've covered how you can contribute to Kyverno, the different aspects of it. So feel free to check it out, and get a good idea of what all you can do. In this part of the session, Vishal and I will essentially cover how you can go about contributions and find the right issues for yourself if you're a first-time contributor or even if you're an experienced contributor. So, okay, let me share my screen. Please let me know when my screen is visible.
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome. So I think, yeah, great. So we essentially want to show what a first-time contributor to Kyverno goes through the different phases in the development cycle to be able to contribute and make a pull request and finally cherry pick that PR to a release branch. This will, of course, start with choosing the right issue and exploring the code base, setting up Kyverno in your local system, making some changes and testing them before committing them and creating a PR.
Okay, so let's start with finding appropriate issues to work on. Since Kyverno is an ongoing open source project, there are a lot of things we can work on, and it can be really hard for someone who is new to the project to find the right issue. If you're new to Kyverno, you can visit Kyverno's contribute page at github.com/Kyverno/Kyverno/contribute. There you will find a list of good first issues suitable for someone who is just starting out with Kyverno. These issues may include minor CRD changes, adding tests, or implementing basic features based on some existing features. Once you have found the right issue that you want to work on and you understand it properly, you can directly begin contributing code to the repo. Or if you require any additional context or you do not fully understand the issue, feel free to comment on the issue, or you can ping us on the Kyverno Dev Slack channel. On the other hand, if you're already comfortable with Kyverno or have prior experience working with a specific part of Kyverno, you may want to filter issues based on their type. So Kyverno issues can be classified into one or several different types, including API calls, James paths, CLI, image verify, validation, mutation, etc. These classification can help you narrow down the issues for you to find what you want to work on based on your interests and experience. Then we also allow users to sort issue based on whether they are bugs or enhancement. So if you have a solution to a bug that has already been reported in the Kyverno GitHub issues, you can work on that as well. And in addition, if you encounter a bug in Kyverno that has not been reported yet, you may open an issue. And moreover, if you even have a solution for that issue, a PR will be highly appreciated. Another type of issue is enhancement. So if an enhancement to Kyverno has been proposed and it has been accepted by maintainers, you can send a pull request to us and we will merge it if it meets the necessary requirements. Moreover, if you believe that there is a feature that Kyverno should support, you may open an issue under the enhancement section and we will happily discuss it further with you. If you still feel lost on finding the right issue to work on, you can ask us about it in the Kyverno Dev Slack channel, and we will try to point you in the right direction.
Right. Slack would be a great place to, communicate about any issues that you're facing or anything that you'd like to discuss, any doubts that you'd like to discuss or questions that you'd like to ask. Another place would be GitHub. So let's say you're picking up an issue, you want to, get more context, like Vishal said, you can comment under it, leave a comment, or you can start a draft PR, a regular PR, and sort of start putting comments as to whatever it is that you're facing an issue with or want to just understand better. There's also weekly contributors meeting where there are multiple contributors and maintainers of Kyverno that get together, where you can bring up a particular issue that you're using and get everyone's opinion, suggestions, or feedback. So before we get into the demo where we'll show you how exactly you can go about with the development lifecycle, these were a few prerequisites we'll require. So just to show you the versions that we're using. So we have Go 120.6, we have Git 232.1, we have kubectl 127.2, and of course we have Docker. Yeah, Docker version 24.02. So these are just, in case you were wondering. So, okay, let's assume I am, a first-time contributor. I have some previous experience in CLI, and that's what I want to work on. What I'll essentially want to do is go to, filter by label type CLI. Awesome. Here, I think you'll see all the issues that come under CLI. You'll see that some issues have assignees that are probably currently working on that issue. Maybe leave those aside and go to issues without assignees. So I see the first one here that looks interesting to me. Okay, so the title says policy report output from Kyverno apply, missing category and severity fields. Great. So this would also be a good time to mention that Kyverno documentation has a lot of things, right? So if there's something, some term or something that you don't understand here, say you want to understand Kyverno apply better. It's obvious. I mean, it looks like it's command, CLI command, but let's see what we can get. Kyverno apply, enter, and we know it was a CLI issue that we were looking at. And to get more context, maybe we could go to Kyverno CLI. Scroll down and you should see CLI commands, apply. Scrolling further down, you'll see the different ways you can use the command and, sort of understand it better. Great. So let's go through the issue quickly. So the user has logged that he has an input policy with certain annotations. And when he outputs the policy, sort of gets the policy report format from Kyverno apply command, the output from the CLI is missing information on the following annotations. That's category and severity. Contrast this with the policy report created in the cluster. These fields are present. So that's unexpected behavior that in the CLI, when you try to get the policy report, you do not get certain fields. Whereas in the cluster, if you simply apply a policy and get the policy report, you see that. So usually in issues, people, will put steps to reproduce, and these manifests that will help you reproduce the issue they face in your system. So in this case, we have a cluster policy that the user says they applied locally to their cluster. We see the policy little in detail. We see there are annotations, policies.kyverno.io category, as well as policies.kyverno.io severity. Okay, scrolling down. We see the resource that the user applied. Okay, that's a pod nginx1 using nginx image. All right. And when the user tried to get the policy report, the user saw that the category and severity fields were available in the policy report, right? I see category, I see severity. Cool. But now, when you do a Kyverno apply to the cluster using the same input policy and output the policy report, notice how category and severity are missing here. All right, I do not see severity and category. So that is the issue, and that is what we want to, sort of address. So how would you go about with this? So the first thing would be, so that everyone knows that you are working on this, let's assign it. Because that's a / assign. And when you do that, I think you should see that the issue is assigned to you. Let's see, it probably takes a bit. We'll come back to that. So once you do that, GitHub Actions assign me the issue now. Great. So at this point, let's go to Kyverno because we want to set up Kyverno in our local system. We will first want to fork the repository. Now, in my case, I have already forked it. So you'll see that it says fork already exists, but you can do this and, choose your user, choose the owner, keep the repository name Kyverno maybe, or change it. So let's go to the fork repository now. You'll see right here that this is under my repository. It's forked from Kyverno. So amazing, whatever changes I make here, they are not reflected on the main Kyverno. I'll see them right here. What I'll want to do now is get the HTTPS URL and sort of clone it. Take a couple of seconds maybe to clone Kyverno right here. Let's also open the issue now because we'll be, looking into it a little more deeply. We'll see Kyverno is now cloned in our repository. Amazing. Let's go into it. Great. So that's a repository. Let's maybe open a terminal as well. So first things first, let's check where we're getting this repository from. You'll see it's from my forked repository. That's the origin. So let's set an upstream. Git remote add upstream. This would be Kyverno/Kyverno, right? Now, why are you doing this? You will want to, throughout your development cycle, whenever you make changes, you'll want to sort of sync with the main Kyverno/Kyverno main branch, pull changes, make sure everything's compatible still, and there are no errors. Or you'll just want to see what branches exist and explore the code there. Great. So you have upstream set now to the Kyverno/Kyverno. What you'll check now is you're on main branch, but you want to get all the branches from maybe the upstream. So let's do a git fetch upstream, or a couple of seconds, and you'll get every branch, every tag from upstream. You probably also want to do a git pull stream to get the latest changes. Yeah, upstream main, my bad. Yeah, already up to date. Awesome. So from here, what you'd want to do is check out to a new branch. In my case, that would be NOK demo. I'm in a new branch. Now in this branch, I'll make the changes when I'm finally satisfied with the changes, I'll push them to my repository, right? So at this point, when you have everything set up, you'll want to explore the code, you'll want to, play around, get an idea of what exists where. It was a CLI issue that we were looking at. So, under command, CLI, kubectl, Kyverno, I'll see all the CLI related code, make the changes. Now the time you take to, come up with the final solution, come up with the final contribution that you're making, it might take time. It may take a couple of hours, couple of days, weeks. So we'll not get into that part. Let's sort of go to where I already have the changes, right? So this is where I've already made the changes. I am in a NOK demo branch. I've made changes in 2 files. These files are report.go under, again, command CLI kubectl Kyverno, and report test.go. What I know I did was I went to report test.go. I made some changes in the raw policy and one of the tests and tried to run it. I saw there was an error because it does not give you these field severity and category as pointed out by the user on the issue. And when I try to assert them, it gives me an error on line 114. So when I ran a debug on this, I was able to come to report.go and sort of analyze where and why this was happening. So I added these 3 lines of code that allow for category and severity as fields in your policy report. So once that's done, you'll probably want to test the changes. Great. So if you're at that point, that's amazing, because you'll want to probably go to the development document which has everything, every documentation required, everything required to, while developing. So what I am looking for is building CLI locally to be able to test it. Let's open that. To build CLI binary in our local system, run make build CLI. Okay. And the binary should be created at this. So make build CLI. It'll take a couple of seconds maybe. And we know that it's available here. Let's give it a couple more seconds to build. Awesome. So yeah, so the binary exists in this path. We use apply policy.yaml. We use a resource.yaml, and we set a flag to show us the policy report. To quickly maybe show you the policy.yaml, it's the same cluster policy that the user had given in the issue, and I've copied that. I see that there is a category annotation and a severity annotation, and the resource again is the same that user provided, so I'm just checking with that. Earlier, when the user ran this, the user wasn't able to see category and severity as annotations, but with changes, now we see that. So I think I'm satisfied with these changes. What I'll now do is commit these changes. Okay, you'll notice that I've used a -s that is essentially to sign off your commit. This helps keep a track of who the author of the change is, and this is necessary. And Kyverno has a DCO check as well in its GitHub actions. This basically helps keep a track of the author, and yeah, you should really do this with your commits. All right, so let's add a meaningful commit message, maybe something like add category and severity fields in CLI policy report or something of that sort. Oops, my bad. Please add your commits to stage changes, and then yeah. Once you're done with that, you will want to push your changes to the new branch that you've created in your origin. So the branch name was NOK demo. It'll take a couple of seconds to do that. You'll see that a new branch was added. Let's go to Anushka Mittal /Kyverno. So usually you see a pop-up here if you open it around the time you push the changes. Otherwise, you can go to the branch and compare and pull requests. So I'll just go here. Great. So I want to merge it to main NOK. That's the branch we're using instead of main, but you'll probably want to merge it to main. Great. So if you see the preview for this PR, there are certain fields that it expects you to fill. There's explanation that wants you to sort of explain what it is that you've done or what the issue was, a brief explanation into the issue and solution maybe. The related issue refers to the issue that got you started. So in my case, that's 8,000. And milestone of this PR. So usually in your issue, for me, a milestone would be mentioned here. Right now I have none, so maybe I'll leave that. Yeah. What type of PR this is, when you go back, you see all these options for what type of PR this is. It could be, I know this is a kind bug PR, but it could be a cleanup, it could be a design, a feature, it could be whatever it is that you've chosen, right? So proposed changes expects some sort of description into what it is that you are trying to do with this PR. What code changes are you proposing with this PR? You are also expected to provide proof manifests that you have used to maybe test these changes. So, the reviewer can do the same, ensure that the changes align with what was required. And finally, after that, you see there's a checklist. Now, this checklist might not look important, but it's very important. It covers, it expects you to tell, read the contributing guidelines, the PR documentation guide, and etc., etc. In my case, this is a bug fix, and I have added unit tests that prove prove my fix is effective. And this is, or whatever your PR includes. So in my case, it would be these first 3 checks. And yeah, any other further comments that you would like for the reviewer to know should be added here. So while I, add the information and sort of finalize this PR. So once I do that, essentially what I'll want to do is create a pull request. If it's a work in progress pull request that you just want people to be able to see and comment on, create a draft pull request. While I do this, I think Vishal can take over and walk you through an enhancement issue. What I worked on right now was a bug and a CLI related issue. So Vishal, over to you. I'll let you share.
Okay. Great. Now let's assume that you would want to work on a CLI issue. So for that, first you will have to filter all the issues based on the label. So we will type the label enhancement here to find all the enhancement issues that are present in the Kyverno issues. So here we have one issue of type enhancement, and the type of code it works with is the change path code. So this looks good. So the problem statement states that the James part does not have a filter that takes a string and output a Boolean from it. This makes it difficult in Kyverno to use variable substitution in a field that requires a Boolean. And the solution proposed is that we can create a custom filter called toBoolean, which will take a string as an input, and the string must either be true or false, and the output must be a Boolean. And any other value other than true or false should result in nil. So let's say I'm unaware of what a James path is. So what I will do is I will go to the docs and search for James path here. So here is a very comprehensive guide of what a James path is. So I will just summarize it for you. A James path is a JSON querying language which can be used for selecting and manipulating variable in a Kyverno policy. And James path allows you to specify variable in our policy, as well as it has supports for filters, which are basically functions that can take values as input, and it returns a result, which can then be used in a policy for checking conditions. In our implementation of James path, we have several custom filters. Here we have one called add. So add takes 2 similar argument, and it returns a value, which is the summation of both the input that has been provided to it. So for our issue, we will be adding a similar function in the James path package, which will return true when the string is true, false when it is false, and nil when it is neither. To do this, first we will have to locate the package that deals with James path. So I'm assuming that you have already cloned the repo and that you have done all the necessary steps based on what Anushka just demoed. So here, let's search for James path in our code base to see where James path code is located. So here is one package called James path, which is inside engine, which is inside packages. So what this file called new.code does is that it creates a new James path, which basically creates a standard James path client. And then we are adding custom functions that we are receiving through the get functions, which we are registering in the client. So get functions returns an array of function entry, and each function entry has a name and the argument that it takes. So in this case, the name is compared and the argument it takes are 2 arguments, both are of type string. And there's a handler which will be invoked when we call the compare function. And it has a return type number and it has a note. The note basically states what this function does. So let's say after spending some time with this code and understanding the issue properly, I have come up with the solution and I have also written the test. So here is the code that I have come up with. So basically what I'm doing is I am adding a function entry called toBoolean, which will take a string as an input and it will return a Boolean. And it is when this function is called, it invokes a toBoolean function. So what this function does is that it validates the args in the first line and makes sure that the args provided are string. And then it will convert the string to a lowercase and will match the string with different values. So in the first line, it's matching it with true. If it is true, then it will return true and no error. In false, it will return false. And when it is neither true or false, it will return an error saying that the lowercase value of the string must be either true or false. So after this, I have also added a test. So what this test for JPF2 Boolean does is that it passes a struct with arguments and the result that we want, or in case we want an error when we provide a faulty argument, we will set want error to true. And then it will loop over all the results that we have. And then it will throw an error if anything goes wrong. So if we run this test, so since I've already run this test before, so the test passes. So once we have a unit test that's passing, then we should test it with our cluster by building a local image. So to build a local image, the first thing we should do is we should go to the development doc to understand how we should build a local image. So here in the development instructions, we will find a guide on how we can create a local cluster. So yeah, so here is the guide on how we can create a cluster. So we have a make file with several commands, and one of those commands is make kind create cluster. So when we run this command, it will create a kind cluster for us in which we can install Kyverno to test our local changes. So here we are creating a kind cluster. It can take a few seconds to up to a few minutes, depending on your machine. So let's wait for it to create a cluster. And once we have a cluster ready, then we will deploy Kyverno on that cluster based on a command also in the make file. So let's say if there are different use cases that you want, this development.md file has several other use cases that you might encounter. So for example, if you want to build generate the code gen. So in that case, you can run make code gen client all or make code gen all. Yep. If you want to develop the new CRDs, then you can make code gen. So it is recommended for new contributors to read this file before they start contributing. So as we can see, the cluster has been created. Now let's deploy Kyverno on this cluster. So for that, we have a command called kind deploy Kyverno. So when we run this, it will install Kyverno in our cluster using Helm. So it will take a few minutes. So till then, I can show you the make file. So as you can see, the make file has several different scripts that can be used, and it is pretty comprehensive. So if you want to know what every script that you're using does, then you can read this file to understand better. And once we have the Kyverno local image deployed, then what we're going to do is we are going to use this policy that I've created to test whether the two Boolean function that I've added works properly or not. So what this policy is doing is that it is matching all the pods that has the label can use IPC set to true, and true is a string. And once it finds that, then it will create a new label called host IPC inside of spec. And that label will be set to the value of can use IPC, but it will be a Boolean instead of a string. So here we are also creating a pod that has the label can use IPC. So theoretically, when I apply this policy and this pod, then we should see a new label called host IPC inside of spec, which should be set to true. So it should be done in a few seconds. So since it is our first time deploying an image, deploying Kyverno inside of a cluster, it can take some time. Once you already have Kyverno installed, then you can run commands like make load Kyverno that will load Kyverno directly into your cluster. So yep, it should be done in a few seconds, and it is done. So now what we should do is we should apply this policy. So this policy is in the home directory. So let's just run kube control -f policy.yaml. So the policy has been applied and the pod has been created. So if we get the pod, if we get the YAML of the pod, we can see that there was a label called can use IPC, which was a string set to true. And this policy, what this policy did is that it created a new label called host IPC, which is a Boolean. So I can verify that this policy is working properly. So now that I verified the changes, what I should do is I should push the changes to Kyverno and a PR. So I already have a branch created. So what I will do is I will just commit the changes. So I have to sign the commit to make sure everyone knows that I'm the one who committed this. Then I will add a commit message saying that when merge, this PR will add a custom James path filter called to Boolean. And once I've committed that, then I can push the changes and I can create a PR, which was explained to Anushka, which was explained by Anushka previously. So I'm not going to go into that again. So now that we have tested everything out, what we can do is we can review the PR that was created by Anushka, and we can also cherry pick it. So cherry picking is a feature that is provided by Kyverno, and what cherry picking allows us to do is that if we have a commit in a different branch, we can use the hash of that commit, and then we can put it on top of another branch. For example, you have made your changes in the main branch, and we want to add it to the next release. So what we will do is we will take the hash of that commit, and then we will put in top of the release branch so it can be released in the next release. So there is a guide on how we can do that in the contributing.md. So here, if we just put this down. So here we have a guide on how we can cherry pick. So before that, let's just merge the PR that was created by Anushka. So I see that she has attached the proof manifest. Let me just review the changes that she made. She made quite a few changes. So looks good to me. So what I'm going to do is I will squash and merge these changes. And now I have the commit, I have the ID of the commit. So what I will do is I will just copy this. So let me just open this commit right here. So here I have the hash of the commit. So what I have to do is I have to first add the upstream URL as Anushka suggested. So I already have that thing set up. So once that is done, what I have to do is I have to fetch everything from main. So let me just check out to our release. Let me just fetch everything. So get fetch upstream. That will pull down every single tag and branch that we have in the upstream branch. Once we have that, I will check out to my release branch. For this demo, I've created a demo release branch called NOK release. So I've checked out to that branch. Once we have done that, now we have to cherry pick the commit hash. So for cherry picking, what I will do is I will just cherry pick it like this by typing git cherry pick. And then I will put the hash of the commit, then I will sign it so that everyone knows that I was the one who committed this cherry pick. And once I have done that, I will push it to the upstream, push it to the branch in the upstream. So let's just cherry pick it. So it failed because I have one changes. So just, yep. So if I just cherry pick it again, the things have been staged. So I will add a commit message saying that cherry pick, okay, it has already been done. So now I will just sync the changes. So now if I go to the code base, I should see some changes that has been pushed to the NOK release. So I will make some changes to the main, and I will make some changes. So actually I directly pushed it to the NOK release branch. So the commit has actually already been directly merged into the new release branch. So that is done. So now we have added the changes added by Anushka in the latest commit directly into the next release. So when that release is published, it will also be pushed. Now we have also demonstrated how you can cherry pick it. So usually cherry picking is done automatically, but if there are any conflicts, then we would like to ask you to cherry pick the PR manually. And these are the steps you can follow to cherry pick your PR. Now, after that, if you would like to know more about how you can contribute and develop with Kyverno, you can check out our contributing and development guide, or you can also check out our Kyverno.io community page in our website. So after this, I would like to conclude the demo, and I would like to hand it over to Ved for demonstrating dev containers. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So, okay, thanks, Sushant. And let me share my screen. So, hello everyone. Like today, I am going to demonstrate a dev container. So, what's basically a dev container is? So what actually a dev container is? It's basically a dev container, the VS Code feature, which in which you can define a consistent development environment and using containers. So this is done via our dev container.json file over here. You can see our dev container folder over here, which defines the configuration for the dev container, what volumes should be mounted and which repos should be mounted. So basically, the JSON file basically reads the Docker file inside it and also exposes the ports required for the container to access on the host, and also it defines a remote user. And here is a Docker file configuration for the same, in which you can define which of the folders you need to mount inside the container and what extra utility or software or runtimes you need to install inside a container to get started with the development environment. So it's basically good for a first-time contributor to get started with the development environment, as they get stuck in installing a different kind of versions of Go, and they might get stuck installing a kubectl or configuring a Git or many more things. So they need not to get into it, and they can straightly go inside the dev container and start developing the start their development journey with Kyverno. So basically that's it, and let me share the demo of the same. So once you open the Kyverno repo inside your VS Code for the first time, so you make sure that you have a WSL or Ubuntu Windows Linux subsystem installed in your Windows, and also it's required that you have a Docker desktop configured on your Windows, and VS Code is must because it's a feature of the VS Code. So we expect that you have a VS Code ID installed on your local machine, and that's it. You are good to go with a dev container. And let me just once when you first ever hop in your project, there should be a prompt to reopen a project in a dev container. It should be prompted over here. So in my case, I have already configured my dev container, so it's not showing right now. So you need not to go anywhere. You just have to press F1, and you can see over here showing that dev containers rebuild and reopen in a container. Wait for a while. Like over here, you can see in the bottom left corner, you can see here is showing our dev container Kyverno. It indicates that we are inside a dev container environment and everything is pre-installed for you. You just need to go with the development process, need not to worry about the configurations or runtime or any other specifications to install in your local machine. So for a demo, I can show you that I have Git installed and I have Go installed, and also if you have configured your Git locally on your subsystem and you have hopped in inside a dev container. So there is no need to worry to reset your configuration for Git because all of your configurations are being mounted inside the dev container. So for example, let's say like I have my username and email ID configured in my local machine, and I need to make sure that my username and email is consistent inside the dev container too. So like, let me check if it's working fine or not. As you can see, like I have my name and email configured, pre-configured in my dev container. So whatever, and also whichever changes you make inside a dev container, they same are reflected inside a local machine in which your original repo resides. So there is no need to worry about that. You have to switch back and forth between the dev container and your local machine to reflect the same changes over here and there. So you can directly push the changes from being while remaining inside the container, and that's it. And also you have kubectl configured, installed, and you also have Minikube installed inside the dev container. So that's it. From my side, this was the dev container. Is pretty good for a newcomer to like get started with this dev environment. And obviously, in the current scenario, VS Code only supports the Linux subsystem to configure the dev container, but we will surely be try to like configure completely isolate the dev container with the dependency from the host machine. So in future, we will look forward to enhance more this dev container so that the newcomers might not face any issue regarding the dev container. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thanks, Ved. And you said this is currently only support for Linux machines, but the plans are bring the support to Mac and Windows as well, right?
Like it's configured for Windows as well, but it's pretty required to have Windows subsystem for Linux WSL installed in your Windows local machine, so that you can mount the Docker containers, and also you can communicate with the Docker sock file inside the host machine. So that's it.
Okay. Yeah, I hope I can, when the Mac support is out, I can't wait to try it out on my local machine.
Yeah, sure. We'll surely be adding the support for Mac too.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks Anushka and Vishal again. So for this such comprehensive demo. And we did receive these questions from our community asking about how do I set up the test environment? How do I, dev with Kyverno, or how do I just cherry pick the commit that I made? So there are quite a few new things for contributors to explore at the very first time, but once it's said, right? So this could be very useful references for them who just get started with Kyverno. Thank you both. Okay, I guess those are the two reserved sessions for today. I don't know if folks have anything else to add or any other words. So stay tuned for our next session of this Nirmata Office Hour for Kyverno, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Everyone.